Hey guys, this is a video I've been meaning to do for quite a while, and it's about this idea of the ship of Theseus, which has to do with identity. And the ship of Theseus was a thought experiment, or is a thought experiment, about whether an object that has had all of its original components replaced remains the same object. And Theseus was the mythical Greek founder, king of Athens, and the question was raised by ancient philosophers. If the ship of Theseus were kept in a harbor and every part of the ship were replaced one at a time, would it be a new ship? So this is a metaphysical identity thought experiment, and up until just this morning, while looking for a picture here of the ship of Theseus, something I ran into is that they cover this idea in the Marvel series WandaVision, and I'm going to leave a link to this video in the description and the comments. Just watch it real quick, and it's only a couple minutes long here, but watch this exchange between White Vision and Vision here about the thought experiment, the ship of Theseus. Pretty interesting. Kind of neat that that this kind of popped up here. I didn't know this existed until today, so pretty interesting that I found that. But I want to cover more of this idea about identity, and of course I've been talking about identity with our twin names. So that's kind of what got me started into this identity research. And then I'm going to show you also what I'm looking at in regards to RNA. And of course we know about the mRNA vaccines, but RNA is also considered a kind of a ship of Theseus, a metaphysical experiment here, or a thought experiment. Now this was from the Wikipedia page on the ship of Theseus, but it was taken off there on March 6th, 2022. This little this information about the RNA part of the ship of Theseus. So I'm just going to read it real quick what it was before they took it off Wikipedia. But RNA, a central polymer of life, has been proposed to have evolved from an earlier genetic polymer in the manner that it makes it a biological example of a ship of Theseus. So this RNA is of course a basic building block of life, basically, is what they're saying here, and a more basic building block than, say, DNA. So the fact that this RNA evolves from an earlier genetic polymer, right, makes it a biological example of the ship of Theseus, where the original ship of Theseus was brought into the harbor and it began to rot. So the planks were replaced one at a time until the whole ship was replaced. So this idea of the RNA being the earlier version of this genetic polymer, it is exactly what they say it is. It's an interesting thought experiment about your identity and who you are, and a whole nother interesting thought experiment goes along with this mRNA vaccine, because we know that the mRNA it basically gives instructions to your cells how to make a protein. So as opposed to an inactivated virus or germ that triggers an immune response, the mRNA vaccines actually teach the cell or alter the cell to make an immune response. So they work two different ways, and then just the very idea that RNA is one of these basic building blocks of life. And I was going to put some more stuff up here that had to do with law stuff that has to do with RNA and DNA and what's patentable and what's not patentable. But you can kind of look that up on your own. But anything that's found in nature naturally cannot be patented. But things that are created, newly created from nature, and something completely new, I'll have to look that up again exactly. But like I said, I was going to put that up here, but it's an interesting topic. So, but just wanted to show you guys the ship of Theseus thought experiment and how it applies to this idea of our central polymer of life, RNA. And you know, we start looking into this stuff, the DNA, the RNA, genetically modified organisms. It all brushes up against some very, very interesting questions about identity, being that's what I've been talking about for quite a while, especially when we're identifying ourselves with our name. And as I said before, I showed you guys this slide before, but I'll just read it to you guys again here. You are not a name, but you have been given an appellation as the title for your life. And this given appellation is your unique estate title. You are given this title for your life, which is your private estate. Your estate is the land or property of your mind, body, soul, and all the physical and intellectual property that derives from your living energy, including your inborn unalienable rights, right? Your God-given rights that are inborn. So this whole identity thing that comes up with this RNA idea and the ship of Theseus metaphysical thought experiment. I know it just very interested me quite a bit. Just trying to think about how what the identity or what's really going on metaphysically with this modification or giving new instructions to the RNA to do specific things. So I just wanted to cover that, and like I said, I'll leave a link in the description for the little 2-minute clip from WandaVision where Vision talks about the ship of Theseus. And then also I want to talk about the date of 8/11 coming up here. I've covered August 19th, August 27th, and some upcoming dates here in August. There's a bunch of interesting dates coming up here. August 11th, we'll have a full sturgeon moon. And what I wanted to cover about that real quick, August 11th kind of connects to a lot of things, or many things I've been talking about, especially with this idea of Revelation 8:11 and its position in the book of Revelation between Revelation 6:12 and Revelation 9:11. I showed you guys this before, but 8/11/2022 coming up here. We go from 9/11/2001 to 8/11/2022. You can see here it's 20 years, 334 days. Well, I've showed you this before, but if we take the 6:12 from Revelation 6:12, the great earthquake, 8/11, the falling wormwood star, and 9/11, the angel of the bottomless pit, it sums to 2,334, and just like this kind of number without the zero, 20 years, 334 days, And I can see from 9/11 to 8/11, it's 7639 days. That just happens to be the 969th prime number. Again, another number that I talk about is the ordinal gematria value of Revelation 8:11 is 1377. And Revelation 8:11, the 141st verse of Revelation, and 8:11 is the 141st prime number. And if we kind of daisy chain the base 10, base 12 numbers here, 141, 193, 255, I'll show you what I mean here. So 1377 gets us 969, and we're the 969th prime number days after 9/11, and we'll put 969. That gives us 689, and we'll put it up here, 689, and so on. So when we go from 141 and we daisy chain it up in the base 10, base 12 conversion, we get up to 969 and 1377, the ordinal gematria value of Revelation 8:11. So we have 969 and 2251, both on each side of this 1377. And on the number calculator here, we have the base 12 conversions, 969 and 2251. Of 1377 here, but we'll go back to this. So 9/11/2001, the 969th prime days to 8/11 here. And then if we go from 6/12/2016, the pulse shooting, right? The pulse shooting. Which has to do with the earthquake, right? Pulse and earthquake, Revelation 6:12. Pulse events was 6/12/2016. So 6/12 to 8/11 is 2251 days. Again, that's our 2251, which just sits on the other side of this 1377. So 8/11/2022. 969th prime days after 9/11, and 2251 days after 6/12/2016, which back converts to 1377. So certainly an interesting day coming up here on 8/11, being that's what my channel is all about. Revelation 8:11, the falling wormwood star. So some interesting days coming up here in August. August 11th connects directly to this 8/11, 9/11, and Revelation, all the numbers that they follow here. And then the origin of this 33:13 that I showed you guys before comes from the 33 verses that separate 6/12 and 8/11, and the 13 verses between 8/11 and 9/11. That's where I get this 33:13 from. And I'll leave a link to the WandaVision, and just want to talk about the identity thought experiment, kind of with the ship of Theseus and RNA. And like I said, they took it off of Wikipedia on March 6, 2022. Just interesting that they took it off there. This RNA section of the thought experiment here, and just want to remind you guys that I'm going to be moving my name and twin identity videos to Rumble. I'll leave a link in the description once again for this channel. Anything that kind of has to do with this name stuff and identity stuff, I'm going to slowly move to the Rumble site, and then may move it to a Patreon-based access here also in the future. But for now, I'm just going to move it over to Rumble instead of YouTube. So if you want to go to this link that I'll leave and then subscribe to my channel on Rumble, that's where you're going to get. I'm going to start getting or putting all of my name and identity stuff with the Rumble site here. So, okay, guys, just check those links out, and thanks for watching.